Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Hooked on Sports here on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever you get your podcasting streaming services. My name is John Flynn, and thank you for listening or watching today's podcast. I'm on YouTube as well as Apple and Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasting streaming services. Week 3 NFL preview. Let's do it. And as per usual, there are some monster games that are on tap for for us as we go along here. And there are 4 games on the agenda for today, and if as we look at everything with that. So the 4 games on tap for you today. We got the Rams and the Eagles, the Broncos and the Chargers, the Cardinals and the 49ers. Those games will be played on Sunday, and then the finale, the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens playing each other on Monday night. So I want to start with the Rams and the Eagles. And the thing I established at the start of the season was that I believed the Rams were the biggest threat to the Eagles in terms of taking them down in the NFC. That, of course, you had the matchup in the divisional round last year, where the Rams almost overcame a 13-point deficit in the final minutes to knock off the eventual Super Bowl champs in their run towards greatness. But look, I think the Rams have an excellent opportunity to win this game because if you look at how they've played, so the Eagles did not play have not played relatively well. They have not necessarily passed the eyeball test by any means. They barely beat Dallas, a team that had to go to overtime and beat the New York Giants last week. And then they did not play well against the Kansas City Chiefs. Jalen Hurts threw for just over 100 yards, and they needed a pass that was going to the end zone to be tipped in order for that game to be salvaged. Meanwhile, the Rams just took care of business against the Titans. They were able to run the ball, and Matthew Stafford, what he was able to do, making some difficult throws, throws that only he and a few other quarterbacks can do in this league. That's what makes the Rams a dangerous team. Also, the defensive line is terrific. The As the coaching is superb with Sean McVay, torn plantar fascia, and or not, but I think in this game between the Rams and the Eagles, I really want to see what AJ Brown is made of because let's face it, AJ Brown has not had the season that he's had, there are people saying that AJ Brown should want out of Philadelphia if he's not getting the ball. And the stats have shown it through the first 2 weeks of the season. And in the first week, he only had 1 target and 1 catch. And then last week against the Chiefs, yeah, he was the intended receiver 8 times, and he only caught 5 passes for 27 yards. And that's not going to cut it if the Eagles want to go back to back. They need to be able to allow to have see AJ Brown get separation from the coverage, and for him to make the one-on-one catches that we are so accustomed to seeing. And if he's able to do that, that's going to allow the Eagles offense to perform at a significantly higher level than than they did earlier in the season. So Huge game on tap between the Eagles and the Rams. That's a 1 p.m. Eastern game. In Philadelphia and South Philly at Lincoln Financial Field. So that's the first game I'm keeping my eyes on. The second game is the Broncos and the Chargers, and this is a game that I think really should be noted in terms of how the AFC West has shaken up, because the Raiders lost Monday night. The Chiefs are 0-2. The Broncos lost last week on a field goal at the end, and a personal foul leverage penalty helped the cause for the Colts and not so much the Broncos. So you could look at the eye test and say that the Broncos and the Chargers have looked like the two best, most complete teams in that division, and specifically the Chargers, that despite not being able to run the ball as efficiently as they want to, Justin Herbert has been able to play at a high level offensively throughout the season, and he was terrific in week one, and then he avoided the big mistake again in Monday night's game against the Raiders. So we're gonna need to see who's gonna run the ball more effectively against the other team's stout run defense, because as good as the Broncos secondary is with Patrick Surtain leading the way, it's the run defense that makes the Broncos defense the way it is, and the same thing too with the Chargers, that they held Ashton Genty in check on Monday night, and then the Chiefs weren't able to run the ball on them at all in week one. So it would be monster for the Chargers. So to if they win, they go to 3-0, because they'll be 3-0 and they'll have wins against each of their three division rivals to start the season, and that's going to allow the Chargers to have the driver's seat in the AFC West for the rest of the season if they win on Sunday. But I think we really want to see what this Broncos team is made of, because they were pedestrian in their win against the Titans, and then had it not been for how the end of that game against Indianapolis ended, they would have been 2-0 as well, and we'd be looking at that as a measuring stick as well. So Broncos Chargers monster game coming up at SoFi Stadium on Sunday in the 4:05 slate on CBS. And in the 4:25 p.m. Slate on Fox, the more widely watched game is going to be that of the Dallas Cowboys and the Chicago Bears. So, but I think a bigger, more important game that I'll be keeping my eye on is the game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals coming up from Levi Stadium on Sunday. Undefeated Cards, undefeated Niners. These are going to be one of the games that, to me, that shapes the playoff race in the NFC. So because the 49ers are coming in, obviously with ravaged with injuries. No George Kittle. No Brock Purdy is still a little dinged. They will need to see how if he's going to be able to go on Sunday. But if the 49ers can't have Brock Purdy go, they'll still be in good hands on Sunday with Mac Jones. And Mac Jones was simply terrific on Sunday against the Saints. He completed 26 of 39 passes for 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And just to think that the 49ers, everyone thought they were going to be taking Mac Jones over Trey Lance with the third pick in the draft 4 years ago. It would have been so good with Mac Jones and Kyle Shanahan together, and we're seeing more of the what if with this game from a San Francisco 49ers perspective. But listen, if you are a fan of the Cardinals, and there are smart people, including me, that believe the Arizona Cardinals are going to make the playoffs. This is the type of game the Cardinals need to show up and ball out, because I am of the opinion that that these two rosters are certainly capable of going to the playoffs. And look, I think Robert Saleh has brought some needed energy back into the Niner defense, and I think we'll have a really good checking point for those teams as we go along. So I really want to see how Kyler Murray performs in this kind of spot. I want to see if the Cardinals will be successful in running the football against the 49ers. And the Cardinals defensively, they're going to have to figure out a way to slow down Christian McCaffrey. And against New Orleans, they had a tough time containing Alvin Kamara. So a similar dynamic back who can catch passes out of the backfield like Kamara does. That's how they're gonna have to figure out a formula to at least slow down Christian McCaffrey, so that it'll make Mac Jones win the game with his arm, which I think is just kind of what Jonathan Gannon is going to want for them. So again, I think the team that runs the football better is going to win that game coming up on Sunday afternoon in San Francisco on Sunday between those two teams. And then the last game that I have my eyes on is probably the most intriguing roster matchup on Monday night between the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens. This was one of the games that I circled when the schedule came out back in May. So, yeah, but then there was some changes. The coordinators leaving was already there. So, but the Lions had some things going on as well since then, because Frank Ragnow, their all-pro center, retired all of a sudden, and it threw a lot of things off. It's in terms of the feel of things, but. But I think you have to see from a Lions perspective that you don't want this to be a Jekyll and Hyde type of ball club, because look, week one that they got their asses kicked by Jordan Love, Micah Parsons, and the Green Bay Packers, and then they respond in a convincing way, blowing the bejesus out of the Chicago Bears in their victory in week two by a score of 52-21. Jared Goff threw for 5 touchdowns and 300 plus passing yards. So they were able to run the ball with authority with Gibbs and Montgomery. So, but I think the Ravens are really want something to prove here, because even though because look, the week one loss to Buffalo stings, and with Buffalo's schedule, it looks like the Bills are going to have the inside track plus the tiebreaker over the head-to-head to be the 1 seed. But I still think the Ravens 1-53 are the best, most complete, most talented roster in the NFL, bar none. So the Lions are going to have to be successful and at running the football against the Ravens defense that look, the Ravens have been susceptible to the run, that they allowed Quinshon Judkins to have a solid debut, and then in the game against Buffalo they had problems running the football there too. So And I think that's going to be kind of the theme for that game, and then can the Ravens defense do enough to stop the run, such that they have to they get Joe Flacco on Jared Goff, excuse me, to be able to force him to win the game with his arm, and if the um Ravens make the Lions do that, then they're gonna have a great shot of winning that ball game coming up on Monday night at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. So monster games: Rams, Eagles, Broncos, Chargers, Cardinals, Niners, and then the Lions and the Baltimore Ravens coming up on Sunday. So without any further ado, let's get to the picks in Week 3 of the NFL, and particularly the spreads. So I went 13-3, picking the winners and losers last week. I went 7-9 against the spread. So for the season, I am 23-9 for the season straight up, and 13-19 against the spread for the season. So big games on tap, but and there is a lot of spreads that had me shaking my head with this one. But I'm going to start by picking tonight's game between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. The Bills have the largest spread of the week. They are favored by 11.5 points. And look, I don't have that strong of an opinion for in the positive for the Miami Dolphins. That dysfunction in that organization is real, and then you have a Bill squad that just blitzed the Jets on Sunday, and now they come home need to look and take care of business, and I think they'll be able to do that. So. I think Buffalo is going to smoke the Miami Dolphins. I think this Bills team is going to be able to rock and roll. I think Josh Allen's going to have a big game. I think James Cook's going to have a big game. I'm going to pick the Bills to beat the Dolphins and cover the 11.5 point spread by a score of 31-16. So that's where I'm at with that game. Now, on to the games coming up on Sunday. We got the Atlanta Falcons. They are 5.5 point road favorites in Carolina, taking on the Panthers. And one of my takes from the season can be shoved out the door, because I thought the Carolina Panthers were going to be better than people anticipated when the season began, but after the first 2 weeks, and then I know that they made it interesting against the Cardinals, a team I had making the playoffs, but I'm honestly out on this Panther squad. That they have so many issues defensively, and even offensively. Even though they're significantly better on offense than on defense, I still think they have issues. And Robert Hunt, their outstanding guard, is out. Is out, which is a gigantic deal. Especially against the Falcons, that all of a sudden have a pass rush, and that pass rush was the reason they were able to knock off the Vikings on the road on Sunday night. So I continue to look at the Falcons, who now have a much better quarterback situation than the last time the two teams saw each other. So I think Michael Penix is going to have a good day. I think Bijan Robinson is going to be able to run all over that defense. So give me the Falcons to win and cover by a score of 27-17. And look, I know it's a division rivalry game, but I think the Falcons are going to win and cover. The Green Bay Packers are 7.5 point road favorites in Cleveland, taking on the Browns. And look, the 7.5 is a lot for a road favorite in a non-divisional game, but I think the Packers they have been as good as anybody in the league on both sides of the ball. that Jordan Love is off to a good start. Tucker Kraft has been superb so far. Their young, promising tight end, and the defense has been able to fly around as well. So, I believe this is the best bet of the week. With all things, all that being said, I like the Packers to win and cover by a score of 24-6 over the Cleveland Browns coming up on Sunday. This game was the last game I circled in terms of picking a winner or a loser. The Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars played in Jacksonville with the Jaguars favored by 2.5 points. And Jacksonville has looked better so far against Houston, over Houston so far through the first 2 weeks that the Texans are 0-2, that they've averaged just 14 points a game over the first two, while Jacksonville has averaged 26.5 there as well. But the Texans have played the Rams and the Bucks over the first 2 weeks of the season. Two teams that are actually really good in the NFC, and they held them to just 17 points a game in those two. And now they get the Jags offense that saw the Panthers and the Bengals over the first 2 weeks. So I think, yeah. So this is definitely the best that Jacksonville has seen, and this is the worst Houston has seen. And Houston comes in 0-2. They're desperate for a win, and I think they're going to be able to get it. Now, I don't feel great about this pick because Houston's offensive line looked really bad. But I think the defense is going to come up big in the end. So give me the Texans to win by a score of 26-23 over the Jaguars. This is an interesting game. We got the Minnesota Vikings and Carson Wentz as the quarterback taking on Jake Browning and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Vikings are picked by 3 points here. And look, I'm going to pick the Minnesota Vikings to win and cover. And I think the thing that needs to be noted here about the Vikings is that J.J. McCarthy has only had one good quarter so far this season. 7 of the other 8 he's played were not great quarters, where in those 7 quarters the Vikings scored just 12 points. And that's part of the growing thing here for the Vikings. Now, in this spot, I think Carson Wentz is going to be. I think he's going to be really good. I think this is going to be a game where I think Jordan Mason is going to be able to run the ball. I think you look at the Bengals and Jamar Chase's production goes significantly down after without Joe Burrow. That he's only had one good game out of the 7 he's played without him in the NFL. So give me the Minnesota Vikings to win and cover, either winning by a score of 23-16 coming up on Sunday. Now, this was another one that shook my head. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 1.5-point road favorites in New England, taking on the Patriots. And look, I think among the most shocking trends of the season is that Pittsburgh's defense has not looked good so far this season. That they gave up 32 points to Justin Fields and 31 points to Sam Darnold. That's just not a recipe for success in this league. And I do think they're going to play better. They have too much talent not to. But the problem with the Steelers is that they haven't been able to stop the run either. Once Seattle established the running game on the first drive of the second half in their game last week, the Seahawks were able to control the tempo and control the game from there on out. And not to mention the special teams blunder in their missed opportunities on offense as well. But I think this Patriots team has some matchups here. I think that are going to be in their favor. That the Steelers' offensive line has not played well. I think Drake May is going to have an opportunity or two against that Pittsburgh secondary. And so I'm going to pick the Patriots to defend home turf and win by a score of 19-16 over Seattle. All right, monster game coming up in Philadelphia. We got the Rams and the Eagles. The Eagles are 3.5-point favorites against the Rams. And look, I'm going to pick the Rams to win the ball game. I think this is going to be an upset special. I think this is a game where Stafford's going to show up. I think the Rams have matchups in this game, so that the cornerback position has not been a one of strength this season with opposite Quinyon Mitchell. So I believe whether it's Adams or Nakua, they're going to have their opportunities against that Philly secondary. So I think you have that. And then the Eagles not being up to par offensively, I think is an issue as well. And there's already concerns about Kevin Patullo and how good he is as the play caller for the Eagles. So I think the Rams, who have looked much better on the eye test, are going to go into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles and send the Eagles to their first loss of the season. I am concerned about AJ Brown and his hamstring. So and I think that's a thing too. And Jalen Hurts' production is much lower when he's without his star wide receiver. So Rams win, Rams cover 26-22 over the Philadelphia Eagles coming up on Sunday. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are favored by 6.5 points against Tyrod Taylor and the Jets. And look, I think even if it was Justin Fields at quarterback, I would still have a hard time finding a victory for Aaron Glenn and the Jets coming up on Sunday. But I think this Bucs team is superb. So that Baker Mayfield is so tough, so clutch, and I think the Bucs offensively are gonna be able to be able to take care of business against the Jets defense that's still trying to get to form. The Jets defense that's allowed 30 plus points in the first two games of the season. So give me the Bucs to win 28-17 over the Jets. The next game was not a line I wanted to look at, and this is one I would not touch if you were still in my survivor pool. The Indianapolis Colts are on the road in Tennessee, favored by 4.5 points. And look, it's honestly amazing what one simple coaching change can do. That the Colts going from Gus Bradley to Lou Anarumo is one of the single best coaching upgrades that we've seen in a while, and the Colts actually are maximizing their opportunities on defense. That they've always had decent rosters, so but bad coaching there as well. But I think this is an opportunity for Jonathan Taylor to be able to run the football against this Tennessee defense. I believe this is a Colts team that's going to be able to beat you in in a couple of different ways against this team. And I just think that the Cam Moore going up against the talented defense and the lack of line play up front, I think that's a recipe for disaster. Giving the Colts to win and cover by a score of 27-21 over the Tennessee Titans. Now, this next game is being played under the presumption that Jaden Daniels is not going to play, which is why instead of the spread being 6 points, it's now 3 points. So we're going to play this at Washington, favored by 3 points. At home against Pete Carroll and the Las Vegas Raiders coming up on Sunday. And look, but Pete Carroll has generally done really well in the early time slot on the East Coast when playing as a West Coast team. And Washington has traditionally struggled in September, whether it's a new ownership or not. But I just think that the Commanders are going to have a much better time running the football than the Raiders will, and it says something with the Raiders for a team that has Ashton Genty, and Ashton Genty has averaged just 2.7 yards per carry, which I think is kind of concerning. If I'm the Raiders or with that O line, but I think this is going to be a game. Remember, Marcus Mariota is going to be the starting quarterback for Washington if J.D. Daniels can't go, he's not not a bad backup. He's pretty adequate backup. So I think Jacoby Krosky Merritt is going to have I'm looking for him to have a big game. I think you're looking at unfortunately at maybe some struggles for the Raiders in terms of running the ball. So I think that's going to be an issue as there. So I'll take the Commanders to win. I'm picking them 24-20 to beat the Raiders on Sunday. I think this is gonna this next game. I as I mentioned earlier is going to be terrific. The Chargers favored by 2.5 points at home, taking on Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, and I can't wait for this matchup, but. I think the Chargers their physicality and their toughness. I think is going to prevail here. I can't stress enough how much I think the Chargers are going to win here. And look, the Chargers, even though I did not pick them to make the playoffs, they're still good enough to make the playoffs. And I believe once they get the win here, I think they'll be able to control the entire tempo of the race going forward here, knowing that they've already beaten their division rivals at least once, and it's already 3 weeks in. But I think the matchup, the edge of this matchup goes to the Chargers. I think Herbert has been playing much better, and the thing is when Herbert is healthy and playing well, he is as good as anybody in the league, thanks to his arm talent. So I think they have the quarterback advantage. I think the coaching matchup is pretty even. But I think the Chargers defensively will be able to dictate the terms of the pace here. So I'll take the Chargers to win 20-17 over the Denver Broncos coming up on Sunday in Denver, in at SoFi against Denver. So this line was not a line I was looking forward to picking, but I still have to pick this. The Seahawks with Sam Darnold are favored by 7.5 points at home, taking on the New Orleans Saints. And look, the Saints played competitive against the Cardinals and the Niners, but those games were at home. This is the first road game of Kellen Moore's head coaching career. And it's up against the defense that held Aaron Rodgers in check on in week 2, and I just think this is a matchup that I think that so benefits Seattle. I think that they're going to be better on both sides of the ball, and I think they'll be able to have their way at times against this team. So 7.5 is a lot, but I think Seattle's head and shoulders better than the New Orleans Saints. Unfortunately, give me the Seahawks to win and cover by a score of 26-13. All right, another big game in Chicago. The 0-2 Bears, desperately trying to avoid an 0-3 start, are at home. They're favored by 1.5 points, taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And look, I still want to see which team, which type of team shows up for both of these cats on Sunday. That the Cowboys they beat the Giants in thrilling fashion on Sunday, then you have a Bears team that's still trying to figure themselves out at 0-2, and all things. But look, I mentioned on Tuesday how concerned I am about the Chicago Bears and their level of play going forward. But I do think they have matchups in this game against the Cowboys defense that's tissue paper soft. I think in what is going to be Matty Eberflus's return to Chicago. So there's definitely some motivating factor there for Dallas, but I think this is going to be a big game for Caleb Williams. I think Romo Dunze is going to have a monster game. I think DeAndre Swift should be able to run the ball against that Dallas run defense that had a hard time slowing down Cam Scatterboo when he was inserted into the game for the Giants. So I'm gonna pick the Bears to win and cover. It's gonna high scoring game, 31-27. Give me the Bears to defeat the Dallas Cowboys coming up on Sunday. The San Francisco 49ers, they are at home. They're favored by 2.5 points, taking on the Arizona Cardinals. And look, we mentioned things before about these teams, but I think these two teams are really good, really solid. But I believe the 49ers will take round one in San Francisco. I think I think this is gonna be a matter of the home team winning here. And look, Arizona has had success in San Francisco before, but I just don't think it's gonna happen this week. So give me the Niners to win and cover by a score of 30-23 over the Arizona Cardinals. This line it has me scratching my head a little bit, but the Kansas City Chiefs are favored by 5.5-point favorites at home, taking on the Giants. Sunday Night Football on NBC. The Giants are 0-2. The Chiefs are 0-2, and neither team has looked dominant in any way so far. The Chiefs have not looked great on the eye test offensively. The Giants have not looked great on the eye test defensively. But I believe the Kansas City Chiefs had played the Chargers and the Eagles, two of the better teams in the NFL. While the Giants had a weaker schedule than them as they played Washington and Dallas. So I think this is a get right game for the Chiefs. I think Isaiah Pacheco is gonna have a monster game against that woeful Giants run defense. And I think Patrick Mahomes is gonna get right in his own way. But I look for the Giants offense to come back down to earth after the week 2 performance against Dallas. So give me the Chiefs to win and cover by a score of 24-17 over the New York Football Giants coming up on Sunday night. And then lastly, Monday Night Football on ABC and ESPN. The Baltimore Ravens are 5.5-point favorites at home, taking on the Detroit Lions. And look, I'm going to can't stress enough how much I think the Ravens are going to win. I still have the opinion that they're the best roster in the NFL, top to bottom. And the last time the Lions went into Baltimore, they got shellacked. And I think it's going to be a similar boat this time around. Give me the Ravens to win and cover by a score of 34-24 over the Detroit Lions coming up on Sunday. So those are my picks for week 3 of the NFL season. Thank you so very much, of course, for listening or watching this podcast, wherever you get your podcasting streaming services. So until next week, this is John Flynn saying so long. I'll be back here on the podcast next week to discuss everything that's going on in the world of sports. So have a wonderful week, everybody, and enjoy the games. And I'll talk to you again next week. So long, everybody, and take care.